All right, joining us now to talk about this is the author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War and the Coming Collapse of China, Gordon Chang. Always great to talk to you, Gordon.
Thanks, John.
Now, while this issue doesn't directly involve the Chinese, I know they've weighed in on it. And also, there are elements here of misinformation and propaganda. And I know you know those two topics very well, Gordon. So I wanted to get your take on this story, these allegations that the Russians are making about bioweapons in Ukraine.
Well, first of all, the Russian and the Chinese allegations are false. The United States did not operate biological weapons labs in Ukraine or anywhere else for that matter. Now, the Biological Weapons Convention permits countries to study pathogens to defend against biological weapons. And we do that in the United States. We do it perhaps elsewhere. But, you know, there are countries such as China and almost probably Russia that are developing biological weapons. And there's a lot of evidence regarding China in this regard. So you got to remember, John, that the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman who charged that the U.S. was conducting this biological weapons research in Ukraine was also the same guy. You've got him on his screen, Zhao Lijian, who said that coronavirus came from the United States. He said that on March 12th, 2020.
Yeah, the Chinese would love nothing more than to accuse us, just like the Russians have, of making biological weapons in Ukraine when, of course, we know they are doing this in their own countries. And the other thing here, Gordon, people heard about biolabs and they instantly thought, some people did, of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We can't let folks forget about that either. That's what's happening in China, right?
Yes, well, we know that the Chinese are developing pathogens. The Chinese military researchers, especially since 2017, have been writing about these openly, about a new type of biological warfare, they call it, of, quote, specific ethnic genetic attacks. In other words, pathogens that will leave Chinese people immune but kill everybody else. And I believe that's the reason why they've gone on this massive collection effort of the DNA profiles of Americans and other foreigners, and why they prohibit the transfer of DNA profiles of Chinese out of China. There is so much writing on this. The Chinese are not trying to hide what they're doing, John. And so it's not surprising that they are accusing other countries of what they themselves are doing. And by the way, we should not be in the Biological Weapons Convention because there are no inspections regimes in that agreement.
Right. And, you know, this is just another one of those threats that we have to worry about, the biological weapons threat, cyber attacks, nuclear threats. These are the realities of this prospect of World War III, where we seem to be on the cusp of that. One more thing we wanted to talk about, Gordon, while we had you here, might be a silver lining. South Korea has elected a new president, Yoon Suk-yeol. He is a conservative ex-prosecutor, and the Korean newspapers even call him the So-called Trump.
Yes, this is really good news for the free world because his opponent, Lee Jae-myung, was essentially a pro-North Korean, pro-China activist who was going to basically take South Korea and turn it into a totalitarian state if he got his way. Unfortunately, the people of South Korea don't like that. This election was fought primarily, as most South Korean elections are, on domestic economic issues. But nonetheless, both Yoon and Lee had extremely different views on how South Korea should approach the rest of the world. If Lee had won, probably the U.S. military alliance with South Korea would have been broken, and that would have been a big green light to Kim Jong-un to invade the South. This would have been a disaster of unimaginable proportions. So by a 1% or so margin, we averted a really horrible situation.
As you always do, Gordon, you put it in such clear and concise terms. We didn't want to let this go unnoticed because, as you said, this is a pivotal moment for the people of South Korea and perhaps a win for the free world. We'll see. Gordon Chang, great to see you as always.
Thank you so much, John.